20 black actors Hollywood won't cast anymore. One won an Oscar. One slapped a comedian in front of 1 billion viewers. One staged a hate crime. One got fired for using a single word. And one waited 40 years just to be seen. These are 20 black actors who were once at the absolute top of Hollywood, and then Hollywood stopped calling. Some made choices that burned their own careers to the ground. Some were pushed out by a system that punishes black talent for speaking up, growing older, or simply refusing to shrink. And some are still fighting to get back what was taken. Before we go further, subscribe to Remembered Lives channel right now and hit the bell. These stories deserve to be told in full. Orlando Brown. He was one of Disney Channel's brightest stars. Then, everything fell apart. Slowly, publicly, and painfully. Orlando Brown was born on December 4, 1987 in Los Angeles. He broke into Hollywood at age 7 with Major Payne, 1995, then built a resume that included Family Matters, The Proud Family, and voice work in Fillmore. Before he turned 16, he had more credits than most adults in the industry. But it was That's So Raven, 2003 to 2007, that made him a household name. As Eddie Thomas, Raven Baxter's loyal, hilarious best friend, Brown delivered the kind of natural, comic timing that can't be taught. The show became the first Disney Channel series to reach 100 episodes. Brown was a central reason why. When the show ended, the roles slowed. What followed was not a quiet retreat, but a very public collapse. Multiple arrests accumulated over the years: drug possession, DUI, domestic battery, burglary. The mugshots replaced the Disney headshots. The headlines replaced the episode reviews. In 2018, a Dr. Phil appearance shocked viewers when Brown appeared visibly disoriented, claiming Michael Jackson was his biological father and that his full name was Orlando Brown Prince Michael Jackson Jr. It wasn't comedy. It was a man in crisis, broadcast live. Behind the spectacle was something Hollywood rarely acknowledges: a child performer who transitioned into adulthood without adequate support, fell into addiction, and lost the infrastructure that had sustained him during his peak years. The industry that benefited from his talent moved on. The cameras that once framed him in studio lighting now caught him in parking lots and courtrooms. In recent years, signs of stabilization have appeared. Brown married Danielle Brown in 2020. He opened his own restaurant, Orlando Brown's $1 Million Fried Chicken, in Phoenix, Arizona. He has released new music and spoken publicly about sobriety and rebuilding. He is 38 years old. The boy who made millions laugh has spent his adult years fighting battles the audience never saw coming. His story is unfinished, and that matters more than people realize. Stacey Dash. She was one of the coolest girls in any movie from the 1990s. Then she chose a different kind of spotlight and paid for it with her career. Stacey Loretta Dash was born on January 20th, 1967 in the Bronx, New York. She began acting in the 1980s with small television roles before landing what would become her defining moment, playing Dion Davenport in Clueless, 1995. Stylish, sharp, and effortlessly funny, Dash held her own against an acclaimed ensemble cast. The film grossed over $56 million on a $12 million budget and became a genuine cultural landmark. After Clueless, she maintained a steady career in television and film, The Game, Single Ladies, and guest appearances across multiple network series. She was working, she was relevant, the trajectory was stable. Then she pivoted. Around 2012, Dash began making increasingly vocal conservative political statements, eventually becoming a paid contributor to Fox News in 2014. What followed was a series of comments that alienated large portions of her fan base and the broader entertainment community. She argued that Black History Month should not exist. She criticized President Obama's approach to terrorism, publicly, and in terms Fox News eventually found too inflammatory, suspending her in 2016 after she said he didn't give a shit about terrorism. Her contract was not renewed. She later admitted she had been playing a role, performing as the angry conservative black woman that the network had positioned her as. The acknowledgement came too late to reverse the reputational damage. Hollywood had already moved on. In 2023, Dash filed for bankruptcy, listing significant debts and limited assets. The woman who once embodied aspirational cool in one of the decade's defining teen comedies was navigating financial and professional freefall simultaneously. She is 59 years old. Her story is a complicated one, not simply about politics, but about what happens when a performer trades cultural currency for ideological platform and finds that neither fully delivers what it promised. Jussie Smollett. Few falls in modern Hollywood have been as swift, as dramatic, or as legally complicated as Jussie Smollett's. Born on June 21, 1982, in Santa Rosa, California, Smollett began performing as a child, appearing in commercials in New York before landing film roles in The Mighty Ducks, 1992, and North, 1994. 2 decades later, he was cast as Jamal Lyon in Fox's Empire, 2015, a gay black musician navigating his family's music dynasty. The performance was praised as groundbreaking. He became one of the show's most visible stars, a Grammy-nominated performer in his own right, and a prominent voice in entertainment. Then, January 2019 arrived. Smollett reported to Chicago police that he had been attacked at 2 a.m. near his apartment by 2 men who used racial and homophobic slurs and placed a rope around his neck. The story generated immediate national attention and widespread support. Within weeks, the investigation turned. Chicago police concluded that Smollett had staged the attack, allegedly paying 2 acquaintances, the Osundairo brothers, to carry it out. The men cooperated with investigators. What had appeared to be a hate crime became one of the most discussed hoaxes in recent Hollywood history. The legal journey was long and tangled. Initial charges were dropped in exchange for community service and a $10,000 forfeiture. A special prosecutor later re-indicted him. In December 2021, he was convicted on 5 felony counts and sentenced to 150 days in jail, probation, and fines. He served 6 days before being released pending appeal. In November 2024, the Illinois Supreme Court reversed the conviction, not on grounds of innocence, but because retrying him after the original deal had been struck violated due process protections. Empire removed his character. No major studio roles followed. He has directed smaller projects and maintained a low public profile. Jussie Smollett is 43 years old. His legal situation may be technically resolved. His Hollywood career remains effectively frozen. Monique. She won the Oscar. Then she refused to play the game, and the industry made her pay for it. Monique, born Monique Angela Hicks on December 11, 1967, in Woodlawn, Maryland, built her career through decades of stand-up comedy and television work, including starring on The Parkers, 1999 to 2004. She was funny, fearless, and unapologetically herself, long before that was considered an asset in Hollywood. Her performance as Mary in Lee Daniels' Precious, 2009, was devastating and unforgettable. She played an abusive mother with a complexity and rawness that silenced rooms. The Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress followed. It was the kind of win that should have launched a new chapter. Instead, it ended one. Monique declined to participate in certain international promotional events for Precious because she was not being compensated to do so, a decision she maintained was contractually justified. Powerful figures in the industry viewed it differently. She later named Lee Daniels, Oprah Winfrey, and Tyler Perry as people who had collectively turned their backs on her following that decision, effectively blacklisting her from major projects. In 2019, she filed a lawsuit against Netflix, alleging she was offered significantly less for a comedy special than her white and male counterparts, a disparity she characterized as rooted in race and gender discrimination. The case settled privately, its terms undisclosed. For years, the work dried up. The woman who had stood on the Oscar stage and delivered one of the most powerful acceptance speeches of her era found herself largely shut out of the industry she had served at the highest level. The landscape has recently shifted. Monique and Lee Daniels publicly reconciled after 13 years, with both confirming plans to work together again. She is 58 years old. Her career arc is not a cautionary tale about speaking up. It is a case study in what the industry does to Black women who refuse to absorb mistreatment quietly. Terrence Howard. He was nominated for an Oscar. He was the original Iron Man. And then, one by one, the doors started closing. Terrence Deshaun Howard was born on March 11, 1969, in Chicago and raised in Cleveland. His breakthrough came with back-to-back powerhouse performances: Hustle and Flow, 2005, for which he received an Academy Award nomination for Best Actor, and Crash, 2004, which won Best Picture. In 2008, he played James Rhodey Rhodes in Iron Man, the role that should have secured his place in the MCU for years. It didn't. According to Howard, Marvel dramatically reduced his proposed salary for the sequel. He refused the terms. Don Cheadle replaced him. The role of War Machine went on to anchor multiple blockbuster films. That exit established a narrative around Howard that proved difficult to shake. Difficult, unpredictable, not worth the trouble. Whether entirely fair or not, the label stuck. The personal record complicated things further. Howard has faced multiple allegations of domestic violence from former partners. In a 2013 court deposition, he acknowledged striking his first wife. The entertainment industry, watching the cultural shift around accountability in Hollywood, grew increasingly cautious. His tenure on Fox's Empire, 2015 to 2020, gave him a significant television platform, but his lawsuit against the network and his talent agency over alleged underpayment added more friction. IRS issues over unpaid taxes added financial strain on top of the professional turbulence. Howard has stated publicly that he now operates largely outside mainstream Hollywood, performing in smaller regional theater productions, what he describes as the Chitlin circuit, and pursuing intellectual projects including a mathematical theory he calls linchpins. He is 57 years old. The talent that earned him an Oscar nomination is not in question. What Hollywood demonstrated is that talent alone does not insulate anyone from the consequences of institutional friction. Cuba Gooding Jr. He stood at the podium at the 1997 Academy Awards and screamed, "Show me the money," with a joy that felt contagious. Then he spent the next 2 decades slowly dismantling everything that moment had built. Cuba. Mark Gooding Jr. was born on January 2, 1968, in the Bronx, New York. He came from entertainment royalty. His father, Cuba Gooding Sr., was the lead vocalist of soul group The Main Ingredient. He broke into film with Boys in the Hood, 1991, and followed it with A Few Good Men, 1992, before his Oscar-winning turn in Jerry Maguire, 1996, made him one of the most celebrated actors of his generation. What followed that win was, by his own admission, a series of poor decisions. He turned down significant projects from major directors. He made films that underperformed critically and commercially. By the mid-2000s, his career had noticeably stalled, despite his considerable talent. Then, 2019 arrived, and everything collapsed entirely. More than 20 women came forward with accusations of sexual misconduct. He was arrested and charged in New York. Over several years of legal proceedings, he ultimately pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor, a forcible touching charge that was downgraded to a violation rather than a crime after he completed mandated counseling and complied with court requirements. A separate civil lawsuit brought by a woman alleging sexual assault was resolved through a private settlement. He avoided prison. But Hollywood did not return his calls. The Oscar winner, who had once been positioned as the next great leading man of his generation, was effectively shut out of major productions. In 2024, Cuba began appearing in small, independent projects again, speaking publicly about his desire to rebuild. Whether the industry will allow that remains genuinely uncertain. He is 58 years old, still the same age at which many actors are considered in their prime. What he does with whatever comes next is the only story left worth watching. Gary Dourdan. For 8 seasons, he was one of the coolest men on television. What happened afterward was far less glamorous. Gary Robert Dourdan, who performs as Gary Dourdan, was born on December 11, 1966 in Philadelphia. He built a strong early television and film career before landing the role that defined him, Warwick Brown on CSI: Crime Scene Investigation, one of the most watched dramas in American television history. His character was nuanced, compelling, and humanly flawed, a former gambling addict turned forensic investigator. Dourdan won NAACP Image Awards for the portrayal. He was, by any measure, a genuine star. When his contract ended and he departed CSI, the story that followed was written largely in police reports. In 2008, he was arrested for drug possession after being found unconscious in a car. The charge was eventually dropped, but the incident initiated a public pattern. In 2011, he was arrested again, this time for felony battery after an altercation with his girlfriend resulted in a broken nose and 5 years of probation. That same year, the financial structure of his life collapsed in parallel. In 2012, he filed for bankruptcy, unable to manage his debts. Dourdan has spoken candidly about struggling with addiction and the disorienting transition out of a long-running hit series. Hollywood, for its part, was not waiting. The roles that followed were indie films, smaller European productions, and occasional television appearances, a significant distance from the primetime visibility he had earned. He has continued to work steadily, if quietly. He has spoken about the process of recovery and rebuilding with a directness that contrasts with the careful image management most Hollywood figures employ. Gary Dourdan is 59 years old. The story of what happened after CSI is not just about personal failure. It is about what the industry does not provide to performers when the show ends and the structure disappears overnight. Isaiah Washington. He was one of the most compelling actors on one of the most watched shows on television. One word cost him everything. Isaiah Washington IV was born on August 3, 1963, in Houston, Texas. He came up through Spike Lee's film universe, Crooklyn, 1994, Clockers, 1995, Get on the Bus, 1996, before landing the role of Dr. Preston Burke on Grey's Anatomy in 2005. The show was a phenomenon. Washington was central to its emotional core. His portrayal of the brilliant, proud, and sometimes difficult surgeon earned him a dedicated fan base and serious critical standing. The fall came swiftly. In 2006, an on-set argument between Washington and co-star Patrick Dempsey turned ugly. Washington used a homophobic slur directed at fellow cast member T.R. Knight, who had not yet publicly come out as gay. The incident might have been managed. Washington's decision to repeat the same slur backstage at the 2007 Golden Globes, while attempting to deny he had ever used it, ensured it could not be. ABC did not renew his contract. The show's most prominent black male character was written off. Washington later described losing almost everything in the aftermath, unable to afford an agent or publicist, unable to secure meaningful work in mainstream film or television. He received a brief Grey's Anatomy return in 2014 for a single guest episode. He also led The 100 on the CW from 2014 to 2018, a genuine leading role, though at a fraction of his former platform. He subsequently announced his retirement from acting, citing the industry's continued unwillingness to move past the 2007 incident. Isaiah Washington is 62 years old. The conversation around what he said and whether redemption was possible and for whom continued long after his career had effectively ended. His story became part of a broader reckoning with accountability in Hollywood that had barely begun when he fell. Wesley Snipes. Before Marvel dominated theaters, before superhero films were taken seriously, Wesley Snipes made Blade work, and then he made choices that took him out of the game entirely. Wesley Trent Snipes was born on July 31, 1962, in Orlando, Florida, and grew up in the South Bronx. He attended the High School of Performing Arts in New York and developed a range that encompassed everything from Jungle Fever, 1991, to White Men Can't Jump, 1992, to Demolition Man, 1993. By the late 1990s, he was one of Hollywood's most bankable action stars. Blade, 1998, changed everything about how the industry perceived superhero films. Snipes played the vampire hunter with a physical intensity and screen charisma that made the character iconic. The film grossed $131 million worldwide on a $45 million budget. 2 sequels followed. Before Robert Downey Jr., before Chris Evans, Wesley Snipes was the Marvel franchise that proved the model worked. Then came the tax case. Snipes failed to file federal income taxes for multiple years, ultimately owing the government approximately $15 million. In 2008, he was convicted on 3 misdemeanor counts of willful failure to file. He was sentenced to 3 years in federal prison and served approximately 28 months before his release in 2013. The cultural and professional damage was compounding. Before the conviction, there were already reports of difficult behavior on the Blade Trinity set, including refusing to emerge from his trailer, communicating with the director only through written notes, and allegedly choking a co-producer. The industry consolidates its perception of difficult actors quickly, and Snipes had given it significant material. After his release, the leading roles did not return. He appeared in The Expendables 3, 2014, and Coming to America, 2021, but these were supporting turns rather than headline vehicles. Wesley Snipes is 63 years old. The man who helped prove that black actors could anchor global action franchises spent a decade paying for decisions made off-screen. The legacy and the cautionary tale exist in the same body of work. Jonathan Majors. He was Marvel's next great villain. Then, one night in March 2023 ended all of it. Jonathan Michael Majors was born on September 7, 1989, and trained at the Yale School of Drama, one of the most prestigious acting programs in the world. His ascent was extraordinary. The Last Black Man in San Francisco, 2019, Da 5 Bloods, 2020, and HBO's Lovecraft Country, 2020, established him as one of the most gifted young actors of his generation. Marvel then handed him the role of Kang the Conqueror, the overarching villain positioned to anchor multiple films across the MCU, including Avengers, The Kang Dynasty. In March 2023, he was arrested in New York following allegations of assault and harassment made by his then-girlfriend, Grace Jabari. He denied the charges. The trial revealed a relationship marked by significant documented conflict. In December 2023, a jury found him guilty on 2 misdemeanor counts: reckless assault and harassment. Marvel's response was immediate. They severed ties within minutes of the verdict. The Kang Dynasty was restructured, eventually becoming Avengers Doomsday, with Robert Downey Jr. returning as Dr. Doom. Every scheduled Majors appearance in the MCU disappeared. He was dropped by his management company, his publicist, and several advertisers. Magazine Dreams, a film that had been generating early Oscar conversation, was shelved before eventually finding a limited release in 2025. A civil lawsuit filed by Jabari was settled privately in late 2024. In April 2024, he was sentenced to probation and a 52-week domestic violence intervention program. He has since given interviews about therapy, faith, and what he describes as unacknowledged childhood trauma. He became engaged to actress Megan Good in November 2024 and married her in March 2025. Jonathan Majors is 36 years old. He is attempting a return through smaller projects. Whether mainstream Hollywood accepts that return is the industry's next answer about who gets second chances and on what terms.
Will Smith.
For 30 years, Will Smith was the safest bet in Hollywood. Then came 11 seconds on live television that changed the calculation permanently. Willard Carroll Smith II was born on September 25, 1968 in Philadelphia. From Fresh Prince to Bad Boys to Independence Day to Ali to The Pursuit of Happiness to King Richard, his trajectory was the template for sustained superstardom. Films he appeared in grossed over $10 billion worldwide. In April 2022, he won the Academy Award for Best Actor. It was the capstone of a legacy 2 decades in the making. Then, within the same ceremony, he walked on stage and slapped host Chris Rock after Rock made a joke about Jada Pinkett Smith's shaved head, a result of her alopecia diagnosis. The clip was viewed billions of times within hours. The Academy issued a 10-year ban from all its events. Several projects Smith was attached to were paused or quietly shelved. Sony delayed the release of Emancipation, a film that had required genuine physical transformation and represented serious dramatic work. It was released in December 2022 to strong critical notices, but a deliberately low-profile rollout that limited its commercial footprint. The public conversation has never fully resolved. Some viewed his action as indefensible, violence on one of the most watched broadcasts in the world. Others contextualized it within his publicly disclosed experience of his wife's illness and years of public humiliation. Neither perspective erased what the camera captured. Bad Boys: Ride or Die, 2024, offered the first real test of his commercial recovery. The film grossed over $200 million worldwide, suggesting audience willingness to return, if not full industry rehabilitation. Will Smith is 57 years old. His career before the slap was one of the greatest in Hollywood history. What the slap ultimately cost him, in terms of roles, relationships, and legacy, is still being calculated in real time. Columbus Short. He was one of the most dynamic presences on primetime television. Then, personal decisions dismantled everything he had built in a matter of months. Columbus Keith Short Jr. was born on September 19, 1982, in Kansas City, Missouri. A trained dancer, choreographer, and actor, he first made his mark in Stomp the Yard, 2007, before landing the role that would define him, Harrison Wright, the Fixer's Fixer on ABC's Scandal, 2012 to 2014. The show was a phenomenon, the first network drama in decades led by a Black woman. Short was Olivia Pope's most loyal operative and one of the show's most compelling performers. His departure from Scandal after season 3 was not by choice. It followed a series of serious domestic violence incidents. In March 2014, he was arrested after an alleged altercation with his wife that resulted in hospitalization. Shonda Rhimes and ABC did not wait for the legal process to conclude. His character was written out. What followed was a sustained pattern of legal trouble. More arrests, probation violations, a 2015 guilty plea to felony assault in a separate incident involving a bar fight that left a man with a head injury. A Los Angeles judge described him as someone who had failed to take responsibility. Short has spoken publicly about what he describes as the combined pressure of sudden fame, money, and personal instability, a constellation of circumstances he was not equipped to navigate. He has expressed remorse and described periods of intensive work on his personal conduct. Post-Scandal, he has appeared in smaller productions and independent films. The leading network roles have not returned. The industry that built Scandal around an ensemble he was part of has not found a role for him since. Columbus Short is 43 years old. His story represents one of the sharpest career collapses of his generation, proof that talent, opportunity, and destructive behavior can exist simultaneously, and that the consequences are rarely reversible. Darius McCrary. For 9 seasons, he was Eddie Winslow, the cool older brother every viewer wished they had. Outside the Family Matters set, his story has been considerably harder to watch. Darius McCrary was born on May 1, 1976 in Walnut, California. He made his film debut at age 11 in Big Shots, 1987, before landing the role that would follow him for the rest of his life. Edward Eddie Winslow, the eldest child of the Winslow family in Family Matters. The show ran for 9 seasons, from 1989 to 1998, and became the second longest-running live-action sitcom with a majority black cast in television history at the time. When Family Matters ended, McCrary continued working. He voiced Jazz in Transformers, 2007, rejoined network television on The Young and the Restless, 2009 to 2011, and maintained a presence in independent films and stage productions. The work was steady, if not headline-making. The typecasting challenge was real and documented. In a business that moves fast and pigeonholes hard, McCrary found that casting directors still saw Eddie Winslow when they looked at him, regardless of how much time had passed. But the larger obstacle became personal. Beginning in 2015, McCrary faced a series of child support-related arrests and court proceedings that generated far more media attention than his acting work. In 2023, he was arrested on felony charges for over $52,000 in unpaid child support. In October 2025, he was detained near the US-Mexico border on an outstanding felony warrant from Michigan and extradited. In December 2025, he entered a no-contest plea to 5 felony charges. Through it all, he has maintained a public presence, spoken about fatherhood as a priority, and worked on independent productions and stage plays. He founded a nonprofit called Father's Care. Darius McCrary is 49 years old. His legacy as Eddie Winslow is secure. The road since has been a study in how swiftly legal trouble can overshadow decades of creative work. Janet Hubert. She was the original Aunt Viv. And then she became something Hollywood almost never forgives, a woman who told the truth about what happened to her. Janet Louise Hubert was born on January 13, 1956 in Chicago. She trained rigorously as a dancer and actress, performing with the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater before transitioning to screen work. Her casting as Vivian Banks, the educated, elegant, passionate matriarch of the Banks family in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, made her one of the most visible black actresses on American network television in the early 1990s. She was fired after season 3. The official explanation from the production was that she had made the show unbearable. The version she has maintained for decades is different, that she was pregnant, that she pushed back on creative decisions, that she was labeled difficult for having professional standards, and that Will Smith, as a producer on the show, had significant influence over the decision to replace her. What followed was not a graceful career transition. Hubert lost an enormous platform overnight and found herself largely unable to replace it. She has spoken bluntly about the financial and psychological cost of those years, struggling with depression, facing real material hardship, watching Fresh Prince play in syndication while she rebuilt her life from outside its orbit. For nearly 20 years, she and Will Smith maintained an open and publicly hostile estrangement. The narrative around her was shaped by the production's version of events, not hers. Then, in 2020, a Fresh Prince reunion special aired on HBO Max. Hubert appeared. She and Smith addressed their history on camera. Both acknowledged pain. Both acknowledged fault. The reconciliation was imperfect and complicated, as genuine reconciliations usually are, but it happened. Janet Hubert is 70 years old. Her story is about informal blacklisting, about how difficult gets applied to black women who resist, and about what it costs to survive the industry telling its version of your story for 2 decades before you can tell your own. Katt Williams. He is one of the most gifted stand-up comedians of his generation. He is also one of the most legally troubled entertainers in modern Hollywood, and the combination has made him essentially uncastable in major productions. Micah Sierra Katt Williams was born on September 2, 1971, in Cincinnati, Ohio. By his early 30s, he was among the hottest comedians in the country, a rapid-fire wit with an unmistakable stage persona and the ability to synthesize social commentary and absurdist humor in ways that felt genuinely original. His Pimp Chronicles, 2006, and It's Pimpin', 2008 specials are considered landmarks of contemporary stand-up. He also appeared in films, Friday After Next, 2002, First Sunday, 2008, Norbit, 2007, and built a legitimate screen presence alongside his comedy work. But the arrests accumulated: assault charges, battery allegations, weapons incidents, repeated erratic behavior during tours and public appearances. He has been arrested so many times across so many jurisdictions that the legal history has become a defining part of how the industry perceives him, regardless of his talent. Major studios simply cannot ensure a production around someone with that record. The financial and liability risk is too significant. What might be forgiven once becomes a pattern that closes doors permanently. In early 2024, Williams gave a wide-ranging interview on Shannon Sharpe's podcast that went massively viral. He made pointed claims about other comedians and the entertainment industry with a confidence that reminded audiences exactly how sharp and compelling he remains. The cultural impact was enormous. But cultural impact and Hollywood castability are different currencies. Katt Williams is 54 years old. His comedy career has never required Hollywood's cooperation to thrive. His film career, however, has been effectively sidelined by a legal history that no amount of talent can fully override.
Nate Parker.
He made one of the most anticipated films of 2016. Then, its award season trajectory collapsed almost overnight. Not because of anything in the film itself, but because of something that had happened 18 years earlier. Nate Parker was born on November 18, 1979, in Norfolk, Virginia. He studied at Penn State on a wrestling scholarship, began acting in the mid-2000s, and built a steady career in films including The Great Debaters, 2007, The Secret Life of Bees, 2008, and Non-Stop, 2014. He was building something real and purposeful. The Birth of a Nation, 2016, which Parker wrote, directed, produced, and starred in, told the story of Nat Turner's slave rebellion. When it debuted at Sundance, it received a standing ovation and was acquired by Fox Searchlight for $17.5 million, one of the largest deals in the festival's history. The Oscar conversation began immediately. Then, journalists surfaced a 1999 rape case from his Penn State years. Parker and his roommate Jean Celestin had been charged with sexually assaulting a fellow student. Parker was acquitted. Celestin was initially convicted, though the conviction was later overturned on appeal. The woman at the center of the case had died by suicide in 2012. The story did not introduce new legal findings. Parker had been acquitted. But the details of the case, his public responses to questions about it, and the context of the hashtag #MeToo moment building in Hollywood created a perfect storm. The film's awards campaign stalled. Its box office grossed approximately $7 million against a $10 million budget. The Oscar nomination never materialized. Parker's ability to secure major studio backing for subsequent projects has been significantly limited. He has continued making films independently, but without the platform that Birth of a Nation was supposed to establish. Nate Parker is 46 years old. His case sits at one of Hollywood's most unresolved intersections, between legal exoneration and cultural accountability, between the work and the man. Marcus T. Paulk. He was the funny little brother, the one whose one-liners landed perfectly, whose energy elevated every scene he shared. And then, the industry moved on without him. Marcus Tyrone Paulk was born in 1986 and entered Hollywood as a child through commercials and small television appearances before landing the role that would define his early career, Miles Mitchell, the mischievous, lovable younger brother of Moesha Mitchell on the UPN sitcom Moesha, 1996 to 2001. The show was one of the most culturally significant black sitcoms of its era, and Miles was central to its youthful heart. Paulk's comic timing was genuine, and his chemistry with the ensemble was effortless. When Moesha ended, the transition to adult roles that child and teen stars depend on never fully materialized. He appeared in Roll Bounce, 2005, and Red Tails, 2012, proving he could handle film work. But the leading roles in major productions that those appearances suggested remained out of reach. Part of the challenge was structural. Hollywood's pipeline for black child actors transitioning to adult leading roles has historically been narrow, and Paulk found himself caught in the typecasting trap that ensnares so many. Industry insiders and casting directors continue to see Miles from Moesha, not a grown performer ready for different material. The personal record complicated things further. In 2013, he was arrested following a domestic dispute with his then-girlfriend. In 2014, a DUI arrest followed a traffic stop. These incidents generated more media attention than his actual acting work and damaged the professional image he needed to rebuild. He has continued working in independent productions, music, and modeling, building his own lane outside the traditional studio system. He has spoken publicly about staying creative and growing beyond his child star identity. Marcus T. Paulk is 39 years old. His story is not one of dramatic collapse, but of quiet stalling, a career that never found the second chapter it deserved. Anthony Anderson. He made America laugh for years. Then, a controversy shifted the way Hollywood looked at him. Not enough to end his career, but enough to change its shape. Anthony Anderson was born on August 15, 1970, in Compton, California. He spent the first part of his career building a reputation as one of the most reliably funny men in Hollywood, appearing in Kangaroo Jack, 2003, Barbershop, 2002, and the Transformers franchise, while also building serious dramatic credibility in The Departed, 2006, and The Shield, 2005 to 2006. His central achievement came with Blackish, 2014 to 2022, where he played Andre Dre Johnson, a successful advertising executive navigating identity, race, and family in suburban America. The show ran for 8 seasons on ABC, earned multiple Emmy nominations, and was one of the most culturally significant sitcoms of its era. Anderson was not just the lead. He was the producer, the creative anchor, the face of the franchise. In 2018, the LAPD investigated Anderson following an accusation of sexual assault. The investigation concluded without charges. The prosecutors declined to file, citing insufficient evidence. But the allegation made headlines and changed the institutional calculus around him. Studios became more cautious. The lead role in a major new sitcom equivalent to Blackish has not materialized since. Anderson has not disappeared. He hosted the 75th Primetime Emmy Awards in 2024, a high-profile assignment that signaled continued industry relevance. He co-hosts a game show, We Are Family, with his mother. He remains publicly active and professionally engaged, but the shape of his career has shifted. More hosting, more appearances, fewer lead, dramatic, or comedic roles in network series. It is the kind of quiet recalibration that rarely gets explicitly acknowledged. Anthony Anderson is 55 years old. He remains talented, visible, and working. But the trajectory that Blackish pointed toward has not continued in the ways that show's success once seemed to promise. Jaleel White. He played one of the most beloved characters in sitcom history. He has spent 30 years proving he is more than that character. Hollywood has not fully cooperated. Jaleel Ahmad White was born on November 27, 1976, in Culver City, California, the son of a dentist and a homemaker. He began acting as a toddler, appearing in commercials at age 3, including a Jell-O pudding pop spot with Bill Cosby, before transitioning to television guest roles on The Jeffersons and Good Morning Miss Bliss in the 1980s. In 1989, he was cast as Steve Urkel on Family Matters, originally a one-time guest appearance. Audiences responded to the character with a fervor that no one had anticipated. Within 2 seasons, the show had been restructured around Urkel. The suspenders, the glasses, the voice, the "did I do that?" It became one of the most recognizable personas in American television history. White appeared in 204 of the show's 215 episodes, and that was exactly the problem. After Family Matters ended in 1998, White spent years attempting to demonstrate range, with limited institutional support. He voiced the original Sonic the Hedgehog in animated media. He appeared in Dreamgirls, 2006, and Hustle, 2023. He had recurring roles in Grown Ups, Me, Myself, and I, The After Party, and most recently, Star Wars: Skeleton Crew on Disney+. He has hosted the game show Flipside, finding new audience connection through a completely different format. But the Urkel shadow has never fully lifted. He has spoken candidly about the physical toll of playing the character, the posture, the voice, the sustained physical performance across nearly a decade, and about the psychological challenge of being permanently associated with a persona he inhabited as a child. Jaleel White is 49 years old. He never stopped working. The more honest question is whether the industry ever truly looked past the suspenders to see what else he was capable of. Based on available evidence, mostly not. Cheryl Lee Ralph. She waited 40 years for Hollywood to recognize what she had always been. When it finally did, she made sure nobody forgot how long the wait had been. Cheryl Lee Ralph was born on December 30th, 1956 in Waterbury, Connecticut. She grew up between the United States and Jamaica, influenced by a father who was a college administrator and a mother who was a fashion designer. She studied at Rutgers University and trained with the Negro Ensemble Company before making her Broadway debut as the original Dina Jones in Dreamgirls in 1981, a performance that should have made her a star by any reasonable measure. It did not translate into the Hollywood career it deserved. The industry of the 1980s had a limited imagination for where a black woman of her talent and presence could be placed. She worked steadily, Moesha, Barbershop 2, Monk, dozens of television appearances, but the breakthrough recognition, the role that matched her ability, remained perpetually out of reach. She has spoken about casting directors who didn't know what to do with her, about being considered too dark, about the particular invisibility imposed on black women as they aged in Hollywood. Then Abbott Elementary arrived in 2021. As Barbara Howard, the veteran teacher whose warmth, firmness, and hard-earned wisdom anchor the show's ensemble, Ralph delivered a performance so complete and so lived in that it was impossible to ignore. The show became a genuine hit. The recognition followed. In 2022, she won the Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Supporting Actress in a Comedy Series. Her acceptance speech, in which she sang before a standing ovation, became one of the most watched moments of that ceremony. She subsequently received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame and was honored with Jamaica's Order of Distinction for her contributions to entertainment. Cheryl Lee Ralph is 69 years old. Her story is the rarest kind Hollywood produces, a talent that outlasted the industry's indifference and arrived exactly on time. 20 names. 20 different reasons Hollywood went quiet. Some deserved consequences. Real harm was done. Real accountability was overdue. Others were erased simply for being inconvenient, for aging, for demanding equal pay, or for refusing to perform gratitude for a system that was already taking advantage of them. But here is the question worth arguing about. Is Hollywood applying consequences fairly? Or does it punish black talent harder, faster, and with far less room for redemption than it gives everyone else? Drop your honest answer in the comments. And if one of these stories hit differently, if you saw something the industry never wanted you to see, share this video. Remembered Lives channel exists to make sure these names are never just forgotten footnotes. Subscribe, and keep the record honest.